Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's live webinar entitled Simplified Secure Data Management with the LabVantage Customer Portal and CMT. Today's presentation is brought to you by Asterix, and it is presented by Serby Ray and Jordan Zomerly, which we'll get into their introductions in just a moment. Before we get into that, and you can go to the next slide, please, we're going to do a couple of quick introductions as far as who Asterix is and kind of what we do in the industry. And then we'll talk a little bit about the different services that we provide before we get into the presentation. So in terms of the company and who we are, for over 25 years, our unique breadth of highly specialized services, processes, and technology has enabled us to become a leading partner in transforming the way science-based businesses succeed. That's kind of our mantra. A few fast facts about Asterix. We were established in 1995. And today we are a vendor and platform agnostic provider. So while we're going to talk about a specific vendor today, we don't align with any specific vendor. We align with many vendors throughout the industry, and we try to help our customers select the best solutions based on their unique needs. We operate from locations in the United States and overseas and have over 1,200 employees. But what we always like to tell folks is that over 90% of the team members on staff hold advanced science degrees. We are a business that supports science-based companies, and we are a team of science-based employees. Our headquarters are in Red Bank, New Jersey, and the type of companies that we help are everybody from startups to Fortune 1000 companies. We help folks in the life science space, the chemical, CPG, government agencies, and research institutions. So a pretty wide array of folks within that space. And we can go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the services that we bring to bear, we like to say that we support the continuum of scientific operations and data management. We do that with a suite of solutions that begins oftentimes with strategic innovation and road mapping. This is where we help to deliver transformative strategies with roadmaps that are going to address business imperatives that are going to gear your company towards what we like to call digital readiness. Enterprise architecture, this is the technology and the data architecture that are going to be required to bring you into that age of digital transformation. Data management and governance, where we implement different strategies and methods and frameworks to help you maximize the value of your digital assets. We then get into things like business analysis. This is where we're ensuring that the right people and process and technology are optimized and in place to meet your needs. From here, we can help you select different solutions like the one we're going to talk about today and other solutions as well. But we help you select solutions based on what we've learned from those prior engagements. We can help to develop and implement and validate these different technology solutions. And then one of the interesting and unique things about Asterix is we have an entire staffing group. So when we're finished, we can help you staff your laboratory with technologists who are familiar with these technologies, or we can even just help you staff your R&D department with scientists. So that's a little bit about the services in the company. Let's get into today's presentation. I'd like to introduce our speakers and tell you a little, tell you a little bit about who's going to be talking to you today. We can go to the next slide, please. So as far as the speakers, there's going to be two folks joining us today. I'll wait till we get to the next slide. You can probably just hit the letter N on your machine. That should get you to the next slide. There we go. Serby Ray is delivery manager for laboratory informatics services here at Asterix. Very experienced in managing and implementing large-scale LIMS programs for customers, supporting a wide range of industries, everything from pharmaceuticals to biopharma to clinical trials, biotech, oil and gas, forensics, and even crop science labs. She brings experience in managing these projects through all phases of the LIMS life cycle. This is going to be everything from program management, business analysis, LIMS development, et cetera. So we're thrilled to have Serby with us today. And also joined is Jordan Zomerly, who's an informatics engineer here at Asterix. He's with the Laboratory Informatics Services Group. Jordan has more than 5 years of experience working in LabVantage LIMS programs, again, for a wide array of life science and agricultural customers. He brings extensive experience across many LabVantage implementations. He's got experience on versions 6, 7, and 8, and Jordan is well equipped to troubleshoot and problem solve many tasks to meet specific customer requirements and needs. He has worked with Portal, REST APIs, and a host of LabVantage applications. We're thrilled to have him as well. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking and sit back and enjoy the presentation. Serby, I'll let you pick it up from here. And I think you might be muted, Survey, so you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing great. In today's webinar, we are going to discuss two different LabVantage features, LabVantage Portal and CMT. I'll be discussing the LabVantage Client Portal, and my colleague Jordan will discuss CMT. Some of the different topics we are going to cover today around Client Portal and CMT are benefits of LabVantage Portal, how can you grant portal access to your client, and what client can access using the portal. How can you create your own application dashboard on the portal? What is CMT? Why it is simple to work in a system with CMT enabled capability? Control on the transfer process using CMT, rolling back unnecessary changes using CMT. And we'll have like question and answer session afterwards. So before discussing benefit of LabVantage Portal, let us try to understand what is LabVantage Portal. So a LabVantage Portal is nothing but a collection of applications. These applications are process-driven or use case-driven collection of web pages. These pages present a more dynamic interface than traditional LIMS forms and list pages. LabVantage Portal uses React.js to efficiently interact with the interface used by the laboratory personnel. This means that your client can instantly access the latest lab data. This portal interface is distinct from the traditional LIMS pages and thus adding a layer of security, making it impossible for your clients to access the same LIMS features that are available to your lab personnel. If we see here, the list is benefit. You can see that your client can submit request, access data, and see the progress of requests or samples in real time while securing the data against unauthorized access. So no one can, there is a restriction on these web pages and they can limit to access only the information that is available on their submission pages or like the pages where they can see the result or generate the reports. They can also print the labels. So after submission of reports, once it gets accepted by your lab personnel, they can they will able to see the samples and they will able to print the labels. They can also before shipping, and they can also will able to generate the report once testing is done and it's available. It's reduces loss of data transcriptions error, which used to happen when their customer portal was not available, and you were getting a lot of requests to do the testing, and you are creating requests on behalf of them. It is easily configurable. So these are the some benefits of LabVantage customer portal. Now, the next thing is how can you grant portal access to your client? While there will be no additional installation steps, there will be some configuration to perform before user can start accessing the portal. These configuration steps include configuration of your web.xml file. So if you can see here, this web.xml file, there is a place where you can identify the database that will be used by the portal and your portal ID. So you need to configure that. Each portal will have unique URL as the XML file, and then your URL portal will include your fully qualified LabVantage host and domain name. So next thing what you have to do is to grant portal access to your client is to add some applications, add portals, and as we mentioned, portal is what you are registering in your web.xml, and in 8.7 version there is out of box request portal by default is available. So if you can see here in your web.xml file, it's already mentioned in here. Then you need to add some clients. Clients can access more than one portal, and data in the portal will be filtered by the client. You will also need to add users. Users creation is same as LIMS user creation, but you can assign clients and apps to this user. So you can see that here, this is the system admin menu, where you have like these three new Tramstop, using which you can create your apps, you can create your clients, and you can create users belonging to that client, basically, which is your department, right? Client department. And one portal environment can have like multiple application, and each application have their own use case specific related to specific clients to be supported. This is again our LabVantage page. If you can see here, we are trying to create a client. We are trying to add a client. So you need to provide a department name. So basically, client is department here in LabVantage, and you will be adding users to this client and different applications which this portal will hold. And you will also obviously add the portal. In the next page, if you can see, we are adding our application. So these are submission request app is like out-of-box application, and it has list pages, maintenance pages, dashboard. So this is, if you can see here in the down in the application, you also need to mention users or portal that will be using this app. Similarly, this is the user page where you are creating your user and assigning it to your client and application. Now, how can you grant portal access to your client? There is one important setup that we can also do. We can make speech command and keyboard command setup in your portal properties page. And then you can also set up different languages in your portal properties. I'll show you that in the application in a moment. I just wanted to show you the screen, how your login screen would be look like of request portal. And if you can see, this is after I have logged in as a client, right? This is my home page. So this is basically a request portal page, and this is, if you can see, this is on different language because I just added a Spanish language and made it on for my portal. So portal ID would be your user email ID and password. This would be set up by your admin. And if you can see, this is the home page of the request portals. Once you log in, you will see this. And give me a minute. If you can see this page, this has like, this is the dashboard or home page. If you can see, you are accessing a submission request. There may be a bunch of applications that can be accessed through portal. One of them out of box is submission request, using which you can submit your request. You can see there are some buttons here, right? These are floating extendable button. We say these are fab buttons, which will help you to navigate to the next steps. So if you click on this button, it will open a form where you can add in your routine submission or a request. This is again, this is on the top. If you see, if you assign multiple application to your user, these would be visible. So since I have assigned my user 3 application, that's why you can see that I can see keep request and client admin app 2 with submission request. So currently my user has 3 application assigned to it. So That is how you can assign grant portal access to your client. Okay, now the basic question which we are trying to deal here is what client can do using the portal, right? So we were seeing the request page or request submission application through which user will be able to submit a request, right? So these are the template, out of box default template, and this is what you see is a routine request template. Using which your user will able to submit the request, right? So once they can start creating a request, and if they are not sure about some of the field, they can save it as a draft, and then that time the request status would be draft. Once they are done adding the required number of sample and the testing they want to have this request, for example, if you see this page, right? So this has all information that what client is requesting for, to which department and which test. That's information that's you need to include while you submit the request. So once this is done, they can submit the request, and once it's got submit, it will go to your LIMS user will able to see, lab user will able to see this request, and they need to accept this request. Once they will accept this request, the status of request will change to accepted, and you can see that your client will instantly receive a message that your request is accepted, and then they can see the samples created for those requests. If you see, your client would have ability to select the samples and print the label using this button, print label button here. I would like to discuss a little bit more about this screen. So let's see this one. This is the home screen. So basically, portal is a collection of app, and the app, if we talk about the submission request app and this new interface which is designed for portal, you can see this is not the traditional LIMS page, right? It has dashboard and then different gizmos like message gizmos you can see, and different gizmos which is giving you the count of your in progress request. And then there is a navigation bar. Different pages are available here, so if you click on any of these pages, you will able to see the draft request or decline request or in progress. So it is very easy to navigate in this portal UI. So after the request is done, though I don't have, I think, yeah, I have. So if you see this screen, once your lab person started working on testing and they are done with testing, your result, there are different buttons on this page which you can use to see the result or print the report. So these are, you can see it's very easy to see instantly the results once like your lab is working on those testing, right? So this screen is where your sample testing is not started. That's why your sample status is still in initial, but once lab will start testing on these samples, you will able to see status getting changed here, and it will change to in progress. And when you click these button, you will able to see the result instantly whenever it's available. And at the end, you will able to print the report using this button. So as I have already mentioned, the portal is nothing but a collection of application. An application generally is created by your system admin or lab system admin. So if you can see, this is a little bit technical, but if you can see, this is submission request app, and it has like a lot of pages, and this is like my dashboard, and all other are list pages or main pages. So this is the app, and this is properties where you can add new pages. So you would have ability to modify the app, add new pages, but you currently you don't have the ability to add a new portal, but you can modify the portal and add new pages and provide it to your client if it's needed. That's all I think I wanted to discuss about the portal. And if I can skip for a minute. I wanted to show you this in application. So my application is open. It's very easier sometime when you see the application, right? So this is my LIMS user URL. That's why you are able to see all this configuration, but you can also see in the same time, this is my request portal page. And in request portal page, you can see that I have created 3 requested. One is in pending acceptance. It means it has not been accepted yet by the lab. And you can see one is in accepted. They accepted it, but not started working on it. So you can view your request by clicking on that view icon, right? And since this is still in pending acceptance, that's why you are not able to see any samples or any other detail here, but you can see that you requested for testing of bacteria, right? So that's a view button. And then if I click here or here, because I have three requests, which is in progress, you can see that it is very easy to manage the length of the column. You can also filter the column on the different status and all of that. So UI is very flexible and easy to use. So these are some benefits and what you can do using portal. So if you are a LIMS user and the portal user both, right? It may not be, but if yes, you cannot have both open in same browser. So I'm using browser in incognito mode to just see my request, which I have created in portal, and in other Chrome window, you can see I have this open. Yeah, you can see this is system admin menu, and this is my manage portal page, right? So in manage portal page, I have these 3 applications added in here, and I can, in my manage portal, I can set my default home page, what would be the default app for my portal. If I have different users who is well versed in different language, I can add the language. I can also switch on, I can add the keyboard and speech commands here, and then a user would be able to use it when they will log in. They can turn it on and off, the speech command from the this icon here. So I think that's all what I wanted to show today for the portal. And I have like a couple of pages, if you can see in the app. So you have these different pages. I would also try to show you the view of these pages. Minute. Let me open this page. This is basically your dashboard. This is your list page, not that. But this page, if you can see, this is your dashboard where you have different gizmos and the notification gizmos and the gizmo where you can see the counts, and there is a button which is letting you to navigate to different section. So if I click on home once again, you can see these all are gizmos where I can see how many requests are sitting in draft, decline, or in progress status, how many are completed, and at the same time, it's very easy to navigate using these fab buttons. That's all I think I wanted to show. I'll just hand it over to Jordan next. Jordan.
Hi, could you go back to showing the screen, go into presentation mode, please?
Sure.
Just waiting on that to continue. I believe you entered the wrong mode again. You're showing the notes.
Okay, give me a minute.
Yep, you're good on that screen right there. If you just put it into presentation mode at the bottom right, you'll see the little screen. You want to go back to where you were before? Okay, now bottom right, you're going to see there's like a little display screen. Yep, if you click on that, you should be okay. Yeah,
Interesting.
Give me a minute. Let me do one thing.
There you go.
There we go. All right. So why don't you click next right away, because there's an animation on this page, and then I'll pick up from here. So, all right. So this is going to be the CMT portion of this webinar. CMT is the next step in the evolution of the import tools that LabVantage provides. They're primarily used to promote changes between development instance to a production, or dev to an evaluation system and then production, or some other way. And there's 3 current tools that can be used. 2 of them have existed for a very long time: standard export and change transfer tool, also known as CTT. I think in 8.4 or some LabVantage 8 version, CMT was introduced, or change management tool. They all have their own use case, and they can all coexist together. CMT is definitely very powerful for capturing things in packages that you could track easier, or call them change requests, and then kind of manage them in a broader term. The standard export's very strong for single transferring, small list pages, those kind of things. And CTT is the oldest tool, or one of the oldest tools, the middle one there, and it's very powerful. It can do complete systems at a time, and it's tried and true, and it works very well. Next slide, please. So this is just briefly touching on the standard export. The first option, it's as simple as you click on your checkboxes on a list page, you go to the export option. Sometimes it's hidden under other tasks. You click on that and you go through a couple wizard steps, and then it will download a zip archive, and that would be your standard export. It's pretty basic in what it could do. It can export detail elements, so test methods aren't just the mate of the test method. It has test methods can contain parameter lists and other test methods and specs, and kind of all the other things that are contained within them. So you can have the export contain details as well. It's used primarily for quick promotion between environments, and has a pretty low risk because there's not really too many objects being included in it. Next slide. The next is going over briefly on the middle option of CTT. CTT is primarily used with categories. At the bottom of most things you can configure in the system, there's a section of categories. That's what these are used for. You'll see them in a lot in like legacy systems if you've been a bit part of them, where if you had worked with a previous person using CMT a lot, you might see build 1, build 2, build 3, and et cetera, and et cetera. And that is used so when you run an export tool, you could tell it what category to care about, and it'll grab all the things associated with it and package it all up and do the export that way. It can be a bit cumbersome to like backlog categories, so it's not quite the best option for going forward for a lot of people. But it works it's very strong, and I recommend using it with CMT. Next slide is when we can start talking about the CMT. Next slide, please. So the CMT has to be enabled in the system, first of all. It's enabled in the policy settings. There's a section called CMT policy, and on that you can enable the global change control and set that to yes. And you can then configure other things like require acceptance and mandatory for checkout and all these other policy related things. There's many other options, and then you can also set it on a per SEC basis, and that's what that list on the left side is also showing. If you didn't want to have it show up on addresses, for example, maybe those don't need to have it applied, you could go into that and overwrite it and say CMT is disabled for address, but it's enabled for everything else. So this is just the global saying yes, and we're going to assume that's what we are going with, at least for this rest of this webinar. Next slide, please. So it's also, it can be enabled through the SEC. Not all SECs support change control by default, such as user-created ones. If you guys have a user-created SEC for tracking any other type of record in your system, whether it's email sent or some other SEC, those changes aren't enabled by default, and since they're not going to be in that policy from before, you need to configure it here instead. And that's just showing the other spot to enable it, just in case if it was missed before. Next slide, please. This is just kind of going over the overview of the CMT. I'm not going to read the whole block of text, but CMT is going to be useful for the LIMS data in the system that can undergo changes during the life of the product. So you might have a version 1 of the system that does something with a certain titration machine, and then it does something else with a different pH parameter list, and then all those things are kind of packaged together. And then next year, maybe you get new equipment and you want to do a patch, you could do all the changes in the dev machine, track them in a change request, and when you do the import or the export of that change request and put it into your evaluation system, all of those changes that belong to that life cycle of that CMT process, that change control that you were working on, will all be packaged together kind of nicely. It can do more than just parameter lists and test methods. It can do just about anything. All things are tracked through checking in and checking out. When you check out something, you assign it to what change request it belongs to. You can have it go to a junk change request. If you're only checking to see if an email gets affected by the font choices you make within a policy, then you would check out the policy. Maybe you'd check it out as test change request or something or else, and then make your changes, send out the email, see what it looks like, and then maybe you didn't like what it looks like. You could either roll it back, I'll go over that in a little bit, or you could just save the changes under that change request that will never be exported as some kind of junk change request. The change request is exported and stuff like that after the fact. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. I was just briefly going over examples, not a big deal. So CMT, before you can even create or use CMT in the first place to ever get a prompt of what change request something belongs to, you have to create a change request in the first place. And that would be on lab admin. under the change control tram line, you'd click add change requests, and then you're prompted with that box on the right side. Your description could be as simple as change request for Jordan, or it could be as complicated as change request for whatever they're changing. And then you could put a priority on it, a due date on it, assigned user, you can assign departments to it. The assigned user and departments limit, I think, they limit who can actually submit things into the change request. So if I'm a part of a department that isn't assigned the change request, then when I make a change, I can't log it under that change request. Or if I'm not the user. So if I had a specific one that Jordan's working on, I could make it only assigned. Survey's work couldn't accidentally be assigned to what I'm working on. Next slide, please. Next slide, Survey. There we go. Thank you. After you first create a change request, it's going to be present on the change request list, and it'll have various options at the top. You can edit the change request where you change the description or the departments or anything like that. If you didn't enable auto acceptance on that policy when we first enabled it, like we did it previously, it can be used. This is just kind of a gate to make sure that a change request isn't just made for the sake of being made, and that way it can only be used after someone's accepted it. You can mark things as complete, which would allow things not to be used in the future. Approving it also closes it out. I think you have to have it completed first before you can approve it. And then you can export it at any time. The export is only going to show things that are belonging to it. And you can, of course, cancel it, which would remove it from the ability to be selected. This is what would be present on a change request when you first click save on an SDI. So I was working on a parameter list. This example is bacterial endotoxins. If I were to change the description of it to saying do not use for this type of instrument or some other kind of descriptor, or change a parameter on there, or change the math of anything belonging to it, when I click save, if it's enabled, I will be prompted with this page, which is going to ask me what change request is this going to belong to. And I can check it out to either myself or to my department. The do not prompt again prevents the save buttons prompt to show up again. It would make every single one of the ones in the future check out in the exact same way as this one. So I would check it out to me forever until I disable that feature again. Yeah, that's just how you check out. It's pretty simple. It could be a little annoying to have it prompt each time, but that's why there's that checkbox at the bottom of there. Next slide, please. After you've checked out an item and you're done working on it, there will be so after you've checked out items and you're done working on them, on the same page that has the checkout item, there's a flag icon. I don't know why I didn't capture it here. That's my apologies. You would be able to see that something's checked out, and when you check it in, you'd get the bottom part of the screen where you could say that I made a change for a particular upgrade in a test essay, or we're no longer using this instrument. It's now defunct, or whatever else is your reasoning. And that way, when it's audited or checked by some other user in the future, they can go back to this change request and say, oh, Jordan made this change on endotoxin, and the reason why he made the change is for a demo, or whatever the actual reasoning is. And after you're done with all the changes, then you would be able to export it. And when you export it, the change request that's exported will contain all of the items that were not just checked out to it, but also checked in. slide. Next slide, please. On the bottom part of this, and then we'll go up, we can undo a checkout. So if I was making changes to a parameter list to see what happens on the math or see how it's reported out at the report stage of something, I can undo the checkout, which will bring it back to the prior state. One thing to know is that even though I have an item checked out to me when I'm working on it, if other users use it in live data or they use it in their own testing things, they will get applied to their samples. If they're applying test methods that are being modified, they will get the current saved version. It doesn't just make the change on my end. It's me that's editing it. But if a user were to add in the endotoxin parameter list, they'll see that when they go check on it, it has the new equations in it or the new wording of something or whatever have you. If I check that in, then it solidifies it. If I undo the checkout, it will basically do a Control-Z and undo it. But whatever was created will be live. It's the way that LabVantage just operates. And in the screenshot above, you can to look at the change log from, if we go back a couple slides to the point where we talk about the creation of the change requests with the tram stop. One of them is the change logs. On the change logs tram line is going to be the list of all the individual changes that were part of any change request. And that's where you'd see that screenshot below or above, where you'd be able to in a particular change log item. Excuse me, next slide. That's the slide. So that change log would contain that above screenshot. When you would go to edit the detail or look at the detail, you'd see that the parameter list description was changed from the crossed out red item to the highlighted green item. And for this case, it only shows the description, but if I had changed any of the equations at the bottom, how things are reported or anything like that, those would be in a different section of the same item because they're all belonging to the same master SDI item. And yeah, the change request would be a collection of all these items that are put together, and then they can be exported out, and they're imported the same way as the CTT packages and other import packages. So I didn't necessarily cover that in this particular presentation because the process is the same if you're familiar with it. I'm mainly going over the tool itself and what it enables rather than the proper end-to-end use case of it. And that kind of concludes the CMT portion of this webinar. You go to the next slide and that opens up the questions.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. It's Kevin. I'm going to jump back on here real quick and have a look at what we have on the screen for some Q&A. A couple of things. We will get the recording